Hello and welcome to the Fuel Run Recover podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, registered dietitian, running coach, marathon runner, and mom. This season, we're breaking down running's biggest trends, hot topics, and myths, and turning them into practical nutrition and training advice you can actually use every day. Let's get into it. Hey there. Before we get into this week's episode, I want to just take a minute to invite you to a free webinar that I'm hosting on Wednesday, May the 6th. It's my Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger webinar. If you are stuck in a running rut, if you are constantly battling food cravings, if you just cannot seem to get any changes on the scale or with your body composition, and you're tired of bonking on your long runs and raiding the kitchen every night like a hungry trash panda, then I really want you to save a spot and join me live for this workshop. In it, I'm going to share with you why most of the nutrition advice that you hear online is just wrong when it comes to runners. And honestly, why a lot of the nutrition advice that you hear from family, friends, or maybe even your doctor is not great advice if you're a runner. And I'll also be sharing with you the key strategies that you need to really level up your running performance, have better quality workouts, start getting closer to your PR goals, and most of all, stop constantly battling cravings and feel like food is just so complicated, so confusing, and so overwhelming. So once again, this is my Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger webinar. It's on May the 6th, and you can save your spot for this event at the link in the show notes. All right, hope to see you there. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Fuel Run Recover podcast. I, of course, am your host, Stephanie Natchuk. And today we are talking about the thing that might really, truly be missing when it comes to your fueling strategy. It's not what you might think. It's not more information. It's not some secret fueling product or plan or something like that. It's just simply your confidence in what you're doing. And so I want to backtrack a little bit here. So this past weekend, I had the absolute pleasure of giving a talk to a group of runners as part of my local runners association, the Manitoba Runners Association, their fundraising breakfast event. And so this was a room full of runners, many of them very experienced runners, right? Like longtime members and participants of the MRA. And so I didn't want to go in there and give kind of the same old, like, you need to eat carbs, like that same old kind of nutrition talk. Like, I know that runners of all experience levels and stuff like that can still struggle with their fueling. I work with runners every single day who have been running for decades and still, have a lot of questions or, a lot of things with their fueling that we can optimize. But I wanted to like bring something different and something really fresh to this group. And so I wanted to kind of dig at that deeper mindset shift about like our relationship with fueling as a whole. And again, dig at this thing that's really missing from a lot of runners' nutrition plan or their kind of overall strategy and approach, which is confidence. And so during the talk, I shared the story of my worst race ever. So the half marathon that I ran, it was back in 2018, and it was the race that made me basically want to quit running. And I'm sure many of you listening have had that race. And maybe it was early on in your running journey. Maybe it was later and kind of came out of left field for you. But I think we've all had that race. Maybe we've had many races that really make us question everything. Should we continue to sign up for that next event? Should we even bother with running? Are we just not cut out for this sport? Like, what is it about us that we just seem to suck and other people don't, right? And this has nothing to do with how fast or not you are, right? Like, I think everyone, it doesn't matter the number of the time that you finish the race, right? We all have those days where just nothing seems to click. And so for me, I managed to turn things around. I didn't quit running, which is important, right? It was good. I did not quit. But I managed to turn things around and I ran that same race 1 year later and got a massive 10-minute PR, right? And yes, there were some very practical things about my fueling and my training that I changed, right? I trained very differently than I had ever trained before for that race. I dare say I trained better than I trained for that race. But also when it came to my fueling, at that point in time, I was already a registered dietitian. I was not the runner's dietitian, right? Like I wasn't doing this work that I am now today with runners. That obviously came off everything I learned and the differences that I was able to make and really started to get more invested in it. But the real shift for me was building confidence in what I was doing so that all of the outside voices that were telling me something different no longer mattered, right? Because all of the bad advice did not cease to exist between 2018 and 2019, right? Social media and the internet and people's opinions and all of that stuff didn't turn off in that year that I was making so many changes to what I was doing that allowed me to get 10 minutes faster in my half marathon, right? Instead, I built confidence in what I was doing and I committed to the process of what I was working towards so that I actually got the outcome that I was driven towards. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have confidence in something, we are going to struggle to be committed and we're going to struggle to be consistent. And I want you to think, if you've been stuck here, like if this is hitting home for you today and this is kind of resonating, I want you to think to a time that you were following a plan, and maybe this is nutrition related or maybe it's running related or something like that, but you've got this plan and you're not entirely sure if this is the right thing to do, right? You're not 100% certain that this is the right plan for you or the right plan to make you reach your goals. And maybe you were at first, but there's other information coming in, or maybe the results aren't there, or you don't really know what you're supposed to be looking for in terms of results, or whatever's going on, you've got some questions. How likely is it going to be that when you are given some opportunity to not follow the plan, you're going to take it? And maybe that's with your fueling. If you're not really sure if you should be eating that much carb, if you're not really confident that you need to be fueling or drinking that much per hour of your long run, if you're not really certain that you should be slowing down on those long runs, right? What are the chances you're going to actually do it? Right? So again, this is not a knowledge problem necessarily, but it's a confidence problem. And so much of this confidence problem comes from the overwhelming amount of information that we are exposed to via the internet, right? And not necessarily just social media. Like I don't want to entirely blame social media for this because back in 2018, when I was struggling, social media certainly was not what it is today, right? Like very, very different social media wise, but like the internet still existed, books still existed, people still existed sharing their opinions and talking about these things. And so, that shakiness that I was feeling in my confidence, I can't directly blame social media, but I can absolutely guarantee that it has gotten a million times harder as time has gone on, right? We're kind of living this every single day now, especially if you are actively participating in like running Facebook groups and communities and places where you're getting lots of different opinions about lots of different things, right? We're scrolling through social media. Maybe we have a question about something, so we like ask the question on social media. Or we just see like people making big, bold, crazy statements without any substance behind them, like with nothing to back it up, no substance, no kind of evidence or anything, but the views are what matter on there nowadays. So there's a lot of like rage bait and a lot of things because there's no consequences for sharing misinformation a lot of the time, right? Like you can get on there and you can say some crazy stuff and like no one's like no one's gonna do anything, right? You got your views, you got your money, whatever it might be, and that's the end of it. But the people that are taking this seriously, or at least maybe they know it's not 100% valid, but it still is enough to shake their confidence in what they're doing, right? especially when people who are making some of these bold statements about fueling and stuff, like they look a certain way, right? And our body a lot of time is our business card online. And as unfortunate as that is, it's the reality, right? If you have a six pack, you immediately get more authority on stuff, even if you have no idea what you're talking about. So all of this like rage baity sort of stuff, right? I mean, it's like why you should never ever train fasted or why you should only train fasted. You need to be running more. Oh no, you're running too much. You need to run faster. No, you need to run slower. You should be eating more. You should be eating less, right? Like carb loading, guarantee you have to carb load. No, carb loading is a scam. Everything you're doing is wrong, right? Everything you're doing is wrong. And here's the one tip that is going to change absolutely everything. And when you mix that in nowadays with AI content, it's like, oh my goodness, right? Some of this AI stuff, like it looks and sounds very authoritative, but like who knows, right? The person behind that account who's posting that content, like have they reviewed this? Do they know? Like, because you can put anything into Chat GPT and have it spit out an answer, but you don't necessarily like you have to have someone there to read that answer and to like know if that's yes, this is good information to be sharing or not, right? If you just copy and paste what Chat GPT says, like a lot of it can be wrong or at the very least not applicable to all people. So at the end of the day, we go looking for advice or answers. Maybe we post a question in like a running Facebook group. And I see this, like people ask a simple question about fueling and you get 85 comments with totally different answers. Some might be helpful, some are not helpful. Some are probably just trolls who are just in there like trying to stir the pot and get people upset and fighting in the comments. Like, I don't know. And I feel so bad for some of the runners who are asking these questions and looking for this help and these answers, because I don't think there's any way that you're walking away from that not even more confused and overwhelmed than you were before. Like, I have no idea. But anyway, what I mean is that like our issue today is not a lack of knowledge or a lack of resources, right? It's too much knowledge without specificity to us and our goals and needs. So, yeah, all of the information you're out there seeing works for somebody, probably. I mean, there's probably someone who something is working for. All the things are probably working for someone, right? But without having that deeper understanding of our needs, our training volume, our goals, like all of the things to do with us specifically, it all just becomes noise, right? And then we can end up getting stuck fueling like this person over here who's in a low volume off season when we're not, or we can be fueling like the person who's in like peak marathon training weeks when we're not, or even within the same type of training cycle, right? If you're a runner training for a race and you're running 30 miles a week, that's going to be very different nutritionally than the runner who is training for potentially that exact same distance, but they're a runner who runs 60 miles a week, right? It's not just how to fuel for half marathon training. It's how to fuel for the specific workouts that you are doing on a day-to-day basis. And so this is where we have to really know ourselves, our training schedule, right? Even down to the time of day that we're going to be doing these workouts, right? Like someone who trains and runs 10 miles before 8 o'clock in the morning needs a different approach to fueling versus someone who runs 5K at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And or even somebody who runs 10 miles at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like maybe we're running the same distance, but at a different time of day. That nutrition strategy is going to look a little bit different for each of those people. And so if they were both, okay, I'm running 10 miles today, so I'm going to follow the same plan, right? That could lead them both to not be fueled at the right times and not get the best results, or maybe like lack recovery, that sort of thing. And so what I want runners to develop is confidence because they have an understanding of like what they need. And so what I want you to take away from this episode is again, not like the practicalness of like this many grams of carbs and like, this is what your plate should look like and some of those things, but it's the importance of turning that reflection in, not always looking for the answer externally, but knowing where you're struggling, what the gaps are with your eating and your running, and then being able to filter the information you get from the internet through your knowledge around your goals and needs. Because when we can start to filter everything through, well, what's right for me, now it paints a little bit of a different picture where you can start to filter out or kind of discount or ignore 80 to 90% of the advice that you're seeing, right? Like if you are an older runner who's running and trying to manage a chronic condition like type 2 diabetes, then a lot of the information that you're seeing might not work for you or be appropriate for you. But if you aren't that runner, then you don't necessarily want the people who are doing that to be the ones who are giving you advice on Facebook, and you're trying to eat like someone who's trying to manage their blood sugars, right? Like we just need to start looking at things with a tighter filter of, well, what about me and what do I need and what's going to work for me? And I promise you, if you can start to do that, if you can start to turn inward, reflect inward, then all of a sudden you probably have then 90% of the information that you need to make better choices, but it also allows you to better commit to a strategy and actually see it through to the results, because all of this stuff takes time, right? Whether we're training in a way to get faster, eating in a way to reduce body fat percentage, eating and training in a way to build more muscle mass, these are not things that we see these results overnight or even within a couple of weeks, right? We're talking months, sometimes even years of that progressive steady work. And if we're flip-flopping on again, off again with anything that we're doing, we're just not stacking those bricks one by one to get where we want to go, right? We're stacking a couple bricks, then we're knocking down our tower, just like my kids do, right? Stack a few, knock it over. Okay, try again. Stack a few, knock it over, right? We're not getting anywhere. And we are building on just that shaky foundation that when something does, when we hit that little bump in the road, right, which inevitably is going to happen, even with the best commitment or the most confidence, things are going to come and get in your way. And if we're built on that shaky foundation to begin with, it's so much easier to just like let the whole thing crumble. But if we have a lot of confidence that this is the right path for us, we are doing the right things, a little bit of, a week here, something here, like those little things are not going to bring the whole thing crashing down, because we can just course correct and continue on. All right. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that if you have been stuck, if you're spending a lot of time scrolling social media, if you are the one getting 85 different comments on a Facebook post about different, if you're the one maybe reading the comments and you're like, wait a minute, what? You had the same question somebody posted about how many gels you should take on a XYZ mile run, and you're like, so the answer is somewhere between 0 and 7, and I have no idea what to do. I hope that this kind of gives you a little bit of context and a little bit of a framework for how to move forward, how to still use the internet for all of its wonderful resources and all of the advice and things that you can find online, right? Because it is a trove of information, right? If you know what you're looking for, you can get the answer to just about everything. But if you don't know what you're looking for, now it's going to be overload and overwhelm. So I hope that you found this episode helpful. To give you a little bit of a framework. And if you are looking for more help with direction, I have a lot of different resources and programs to help you. The first, of course, as you heard at the top of this episode, my fueling audit for runners. So the fueling audit for runners shows you the gaps, lets you know where are you lacking with your nutrition strategy, what are the practical things that you're missing from your fueling plan, and how is it affecting your running, showing you and highlighting those signs and symptoms that you might be experiencing if you aren't adequately meeting your needs. So finding those gaps, doing that assessment of your eating plan, showing you where you might be lacking. Then, of course, I have a ton of resources about fueling specifically for runners. I've got my ebook, my Fuel Smarter, Run Stronger ebook. I've got my new 8-week Fueled Runner program. And then I also have my coaching programs, the Fuel Train Recover Club. And I do have a small number of one-on-one clients that I do take every season. So if you want to work with me to get this information, build this confidence, understand your needs to that deeper level, and really allow me to help you put all of these pieces together so that you can go forward as a runner with a ton of confidence in how to fuel for all the different seasons of life and of running you find yourself in. Ton of ways that we can do that together. You can get the links to all of these different programs and options at the link in the show notes. And I would absolutely love to work with you and help you out. All right, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you back here next week. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for the diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.